Welcome to Milestone Moments, the show where we explore the journeys that lead to success. I'm Sheila Slick, your host and founder of 5 Milestones. In every episode, we will bring you insights from the minds of entrepreneurs, leaders, and experts who will share not just their expertise, but the milestone moments that have reshaped their journeys and led to significant achievements. So if you're looking for motivation, you're in the right place. Subscribe now and discover the milestones that mark the path to success. Welcome to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. I'm Sheila Slick, your host, and today my special guest is Shannon Russell. Shannon is a career transition and business coach, CEO of Second Act Success Coaching. She is also the author of Start Your Second Act: How to Change Careers, Launch a Business, and Create Your Best Life. She's also the host of the Second Act Success podcast. Shannon spent over 16 years as a television producer before she decided to stop producing shows for others and start producing her own life. Welcome to the show, Shannon.
Oh, Sheila, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
I love it too. Maybe it's because I'm in my second act, or like we mentioned before, sometimes it's fifth act, right? I don't know
Yeah.
at what point you just stop changing versions. So let's start and tell me a little bit about what was going through your mind. Television producer sounds like a really fun, neat job. And then you just decided to stop producing shows. So what was that pivotal moment or that thought that led you to start producing for you?
Yeah. I had wanted to be a TV producer since I was 5. Like, it has been a lifelong goal. I feel like everything in my life led up to that. And so accomplishing it was amazing and being in the midst of it. But I had my first son. We were living in Los Angeles, and I realized this is going to be really tricky because my husband is a television producer as well. And there's long hours and travel. And so we moved to the East Coast to be closer to my family and have that support. And we were working in Manhattan, and I was pregnant with my second son. And the commute was so long. I realized, how am I going to do this? I already missed my first son's first birthday and Halloween. I was missing so much and depending on others to do bed, bath, dinner, all of that. And so there was a moment I read about in my book where I was supposed to go interview Taylor Swift. And we were getting ready to do it, but it meant another night of not making it home in time. And it was in that moment, game time decision, and I said, you know what? You guys go without me. I'm going to go pick up from daycare and see my son. And I was pregnant, running through the subway station. And it was in that moment that I was like, you know what? This is just not fun anymore. I've accomplished it, and I don't want to do this with my second son. So let's figure out what that second act looks like. And that's kind of where everything started.
We have some similarities here too. We have some similarities we're gonna touch base on.
Yeah.
Now, when people think, "Oh, because now you're starting that company from home and you have 2 small children. So it's not easy breezy because now you're having to wear not just all the different hats of a company, but you're also having to balance motherhood at home. So what advice would you have to someone, well, in that second act? Because for me, it was about 15 years ago, maybe.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's never as simple as I'm gonna leave this and start that. So for me, there was probably a year in between where I was, floundering, figuring it out, getting 9 to 5 jobs, going for a master's degree. I was just trying to see what fit, and entrepreneurship seemed to be the thing that I felt like I can use my skills for and control. And I really looked at my why. And that's what I would suggest to everyone who's thinking about really making that second act, whatever it is, work, is knowing your why and having that be your anchor. And for me, it was wanting to be present for my kids. So as I was looking into businesses to start, I wanted a business where I had that flexibility and I could work out of my house and I could be there for them. And so that's where I really started making sure that any business decision that I made went back to my why. And so I think that's my biggest advice is saying, okay, when you're starting over, you can start from a place where you're a little bit more choosy. And you probably know this too, right? Because you've been there and done that. You know what you're good at, what you want to continue doing. So make sure that whatever you choose to venture into really sits well with you and that you're able to use everything from your past and take it in your present and future.
So, were you producing videos? Because I know now you're doing coaching and you're helping others transition in their
Yeah.
careers. Was that first company producing more videos?
No, it wasn't at all. It was STEM education for kids. So I opened a franchise called Snapology, where we taught kids Lego building, coding, robotics, all of that. But I could go into schools and rec centers and libraries and teach. So I was, for the first year or so, I was based out of my home and getting those partnerships and going in and teaching. And then I opened a brick and mortar about a year, maybe 18 months into the business. And then I had my brick and mortar store where we would host birthday parties and camps and all of that. But it was fantastic and nothing like I used to do. But it really stemmed from my 3-year-old at the time, just wanting to create and build with his hands. And I loved the idea of whatever you think in your head, you can create in your hands. So I wanted to really teach kids that aspect of STEM, which I know you have a background in too.
Well, that's where we have something else in common. It sounds like part of your drive led to education and then incorporating your children
Yes.
and weaving them in at the same time. So when I learned how to code, which I told you my first apps, they were all little fun games of things or homeworks that my children would bring home. Like, mommy, I got to learn the multiplication tables. I mean, how do you learn the multiplication tables? I was a math teacher too.
Oh, okay.
Couple years. It's pure memorization. It's practice, right? Practice makes perfect in math.
Mhm.
I think that's why I like coding because I really love math. But my daughter didn't, but they'd love playing little games. And so then I thought, well, why not make it fun for them? And that way she can learn her tables. And then when my youngest, he came home, they're called the Dolch words. It's 40 sight words that they have to memorize in order to start, I guess, learning how to read. So
Mhm.
I made him a little train game with sounds and little monkeys if, he got the words right. And then we're Catholic, so when he did his first communion, he had to learn the prayers. So I actually hired someone with a beautiful voice, a singer, to
Aw.
record, the songs or to recite the prayers, but, with beautiful music in the back. So it was something that they'd want to listen to. And it's got graphics, and that interactive iBook still lives.
Wow.
But everything was fueled because I don't know, I guess I mixed motherhood with that. So the fact that you did STEM, which now if we want to talk about STEM, not many women go into STEM. How do you feel about that?
I think it's true, I think it's changing, but I had experiences, which I'm sure you have too, where there were parents who would want to sign their kids up for our classes and say, but I have a little girl, will she enjoy it?" And that would bother me so much because I'm like, "Of course, she can think and build the same as anyone else." And so I hope that by having my business, it helped foster that creativity in little girls. I have 2 boys, but they love to build and create, and so do their friends, boys or girls. So, yeah, I feel like it's starting to change, and I want it to. I think, me venturing into STEM, like, was never anything that I would have thought about, but I felt so good helping other children and families in my community. So I do hope it's changing. What are your thoughts?
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
My daughter, she's actually doing STEM. She's earning a PhD.
Wow.
And
Congrats.
well, and I thought science, you think doctors and researchers, but she says that it's still not equal, so to speak. So I don't have data and statistics like maybe I had many years ago with technology, I do see a lot of women embracing AI, or maybe I'm looking for women
Yeah, I
that
do
are
too.
working with AI and with automation, working with the funnels and stuff like that. So I do think that it will be, equal. In my case, many years ago, it wasn't just, being a woman, it was also being a 36-year-old woman with 3 children when, the
Mm.
apps had just come out and they'd be like, "What do you mean you program?"
Yep.
So, I it was self-taught because I didn't go to college. I actually learned through we didn't even have, like, online courses like we do now where you can join Coursera or
Right.
Kajabi. This was Apple had sent one of their employees to Stanford, and because the class was so filled, they were live streaming it with a little camera in there, so it wasn't like I could do homework or reach out to, the professor, but if
Mhm.
you join the Apple Developer Program, those were the opportunities that you had to learn, hands-on, which was it was very unique.
That
Let me see,
is
20 that was about 15 years ago, maybe, to be able to just, even utilize the internet to learn, so
good for you for jump take advantage of this because that's amazing.
well, I was afraid of AI.
Yeah.
'Cause I was like, I've already learned, and AI and machine learning, it's just, changing too rapidly, but I got out of that comfort zone, and now I feel, like a kid again
Mm,
because it's working beautifully. It's not just working, and it got me out of my own comfort zone,
good.
so I encourage that, and that's why I think I just, reading, I have a big connection with you. Now I also see a butterfly in the cover of your book. That
Mm.
start your second act. Tell me about your book.
Yeah. So while I was running my franchise business, I ran that for 8 years. I sold it successfully last year. And in the interim started a coaching business because a lot of women would come, bring their kids to my classes in my center and say, "Oh, what grade did you teach?" And I would say, "Oh no, I was a television producer before this." So it would spark these conversations of how did you go from that to this? Can you help me? So naturally I just started helping other women start businesses and, this past year, I decided I wanted to write a book to reach women who aren't necessarily working one-on-one with me or taking my courses, but they can grab this book as a resource to really just inspire them no matter what their second act is, that they can, kind of have step-by-step, roadmap to kind of get to where they want to go and make that change and not feel so alone. And I share my story of career transition and a lot of my clients and women from the podcast in the book. So yeah, that was really just like such a passion project of wanting to not only become a published author, which is something I always wanted to do, but really get, these resources out in the hands of other women who need them.
Another thing we have in common, Shannon, I don't know. I think you're gonna have to be like a co-host, or we may have to start a new podcast.
Seriously.
Publish my first book too. It's been on that bucket list,
Yes.
and I look forward to reading yours. So I
Well,
love the
yours.
butterfly.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I feel like it represents transition, right? Which is really what it is when you're starting something new.
Yeah, going from that cocoon, like
Yes.
the flower blooming, right? So it's
Yeah.
beautiful. So you sold the business, you're writing. What other plans do you have? What's your next milestone?
Well, I'm speaking a lot more. I feel like we said, and I know you know women like this too, but just there's a lot of women who feel that calling on their heart that they want to do something else, or they're really unhappy, or as a mom, the career that they chose at 20 doesn't fit anymore in midlife. And so, but they are too afraid to step out of that cocoon, if you will, and start something. So I want to speak on more stages and get the message out there, giving permission to make that pivot, and so I've been doing that a lot more, speaking. I have my podcast, of course, but going around the country and speaking at women's events and trying to get my message out there along with my book. Um, and then funny thing, I'd love to share with you, Sheila, because I don't know if I had told you this, but I have a corporate arm of my business where because I worked with Lego and STEM education, I got certified as a Lego Serious Play facilitator. And so I work with corporations and organizations, and I go in and teach Lego to adults. And it's all based on like using the Lego. We do team building and strategic planning, and it's just a really cool way of still bringing that STEM into offices and schools and hospitals and nonprofits and working with adults. So I'm continuing that as well.
So I love that. And what you have that's really unique, which before the conversation, I said, where we don't see eye to eyes in the video and the producing, I struggle with that creative side when it comes to social media, creating graphics, right? I can read, I can write. And so it seems like you have both brains activated, your left and your right, like your creativity and then your STEM side. So that
I'm
makes you
Yeah, I'm trying because the producer side of me was all creative. It was taking that idea for whatever needed to be on the TV and coming up with all the aspects. So that type A brain, but then also having that creative side of writing the copy and the scripts and doing that. So I try to take that into my business now. Even when I'm helping clients, I like to be able to say, okay, so what is your vision? What's the practicality of it? Let's go through, finances, scaling, all of that. And then the branding and then creative side as well. So yeah, I try to use a little bit of both, but you are much more math STEM than I am for sure.
yes, no, I would probably enjoy the Legos, right? Because then I start building like back in my time it was Sim City and I
Yes,
loved
yes.
building the city, but then I was gonna get a bit too addicted and I thought, well, what am I gonna do with this city, right? I could do better things with my time. So the thought of using play with Lego in your trainings just sounds really fun.
It is, and it's we always say, like, you get those ideas and out into your hands and build something, and then you're looking at it, and you feel that sense of pride, and also your ideas are now visible to others on your team, and so often, there's always people who sit quietly in the back of meetings and don't share, and in Lego Serious Play, it's we always say 100% participation, so even the quiet, shy person is building and sharing, and so their voice is heard, which I think is important in any corporate office, any school, any team setting.
And not you don't have to give specific age, but are your children still in school? Or are they in college? So you
They're
still have
still in
them at home.
school, yeah, I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, so we're still in middle
Not
school, elementary.
have you thought about incorporating that into the youth program?
Well, I mean, I did with my franchise and then I sold that. So I don't want to step on the new owners in my community to do that. But I am working with certain like Girl Scout and Boy Scout groups that have come to me and said, we want to start working with our girls and Boy Scouts to think about college and think about planning. And really, through a lot of what I do with Lego Serious Play, I can work with them on kind of visualizing the future in that sense. So, yeah, I'm doing a lot of those kind of workshops for the middle to high school.
Love that. So where
Yeah.
can we find you online?
Yeah, everything's at secondactsuccess.co, and that's links to everything we talked about, my social media handles and everything.
And I'm going to go ahead and put your podcast below in the summary as well, so that after you finish listening to this episode, perhaps you click and go tune in a Second Act Success.
Would love that. Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining me today. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Milestone Moments in Business and Leadership. Until next time.